My best friend stole my boyfriend and then tried to ruin my life. When I finally exposed her lies, she turned everyone against me, leaving me completely alone. So I'm a 15-year-old girl, and my parents share custody of me, which means sometimes I'm at my mom's house, and sometimes I'm at my dad's. It's kind of random when I switch between houses. About a year ago, my dad started dating this woman named Emma, and she has a daughter, Sarah, who's about 12 or 13 years old. Emma and Sarah started hanging out at my dad's place a lot. They have their own apartment, but it seems like they're always over at his house. The first time they stayed the night when I was there, I woke up in the middle of the night to find Sarah in my bed. Emma brought this cot bed thing for Sarah to sleep on, but for some reason, Sarah ended up in my bed instead. I wasn't cool with that, so I made her leave my bed. But then my dad and Emma got upset with me. They said I was being mean, and that since I have a bed already, I should share it. There's also this super comfy chair in the living room of my dad's place that I got as a gift. I love that chair, and it's supposed to come with me when I move out. But Sarah always wants to sit in it, and even if I get to it first, my dad tells me to give it up to her because they're guests. So here's the deal. I often end up sitting on the floor at my dad's place. Why? Well, it's because my dad loves chilling in his special reclining chair, and Emma, she sprawls all over the sofa like it's her bed or something. Because of this, I usually just hang out in my room instead. It's not like I enjoy sitting on the floor, right? But what? It feels like I'm a pet or something, and I'm not about that life. My dad, he tries to get me to come and sit with him. He calls me into the living room, but honestly, why should I go sit on the floor? That doesn't sound fun at all. He thinks I'm just being a typical difficult teenager, but I don't see it that way. I mean, I was out with my mom before coming over to his place. We even did some fun stuff together before she dropped me off at Dad's. Oh, and guess what? My mom got me this super cool blanket. It's got my favorite sports team on it. I was so pumped about it. I mean, I couldn't wait to snuggle up with it. Sounds a bit silly getting excited over a blanket, right? But it was awesome to me. So I brought it over to my dad's house because I wanted to use it there. But here's the kicker. My dad made me share it with Sarah. He said it wasn't fair that I got something new and Sarah didn't. It's like everything I get, I have to share. It's the same old story with pretty much anything cool that comes my way. So when Sarah gets her hands on something cool, my dad always says, that's Sarah's. She got it, so she decides what happens with it. And if Sarah doesn't feel like sharing, she doesn't have to. No questions asked. Like this one time, Sarah was reading a book of mine. It was one of my favorites. Suddenly, Emma and my dad started having this big argument. Emma was so upset. She wanted to leave right then and there. Sarah, seeing all the drama, decided she wanted to take my book with her. I was like, no way, because I didn't want her to leave with my book. My dad got super mad at me. He was like, just let her take the book. In the end, Emma and my dad made up, and I got my book back. But I kept thinking, what if they hadn't made up? I would have lost one of my favorite books for good. Now, about ice fishing. It's been this special thing between my dad and me since I was 7. Just the two of us hanging out and ice fishing together. But this time, he decides to bring Emma and Sarah along. And guess what? They spent the whole time complaining. It was supposed to be our father and me time, and it just wasn't the same with them there. Especially with all the whining. Update. So after all that mess with my dad, Emma, and Sarah, yeah, you remember the whole me feeling like an outsider in my own dad's house? I decided I was done. I was seriously done putting myself in situations where I felt more like a guest than his daughter. But just when you think you've seen it all, life throws you a curveball that makes you rethink everything. A couple of weeks after I decided to take a break from visiting my dad, my grandpa, Dad's dad, reached out to me. Now, Grandpa's always been this quiet type, you know? Not one to get involved in drama or take sides. But this time he said he wanted to talk. Just him and me. No parents involved. I was hesitant at first, but curiosity got the better of me. So I agreed. We met up at this little diner he loves. The kind with the best milkshakes in town. It felt weird sitting there with him, knowing we were about to dive into some heavy stuff. But Grandpa, in his calm way, just started talking about life, family, and how sometimes adults make mistakes trying to do what they think is right. He didn't excuse my dad's behavior, but he made me see that maybe, just maybe my dad was struggling with how to blend his new family with his old one me. The real kicker? Grandpa had talked to my dad before our meetup. He told me that my dad was genuinely sorry for how things had gone down. He'd been so caught up in trying to make Emma and Sarah happy, he didn't realize he was pushing me away. My dad wanted to make it right, but didn't know how to start. Grandpa suggested something so simple, yet so perfect, it almost made me laugh. A father-daughter camping trip, just like we used to do before Emma and Sarah came into the picture. I won't lie, I was skeptical, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. This could be our chance to fix things, or at least start to. So, I took a leap of faith and agreed. Fast forward to the camping trip. It was awkward at first, painfully so, but as we set up the tent, went fishing, and sat around the campfire, something shifted. We started talking, really talking about everything. How I felt, how he felt, and how we could move forward. It wasn't an instant fix, but it was a start. But here's where the drama kicks in again. Halfway through our trip, who shows up unannounced? Emma and Sarah. Turns out, my dad hadn't been entirely upfront with them about the purpose of our trip. Emma thought it was a good idea for them to surprise us and join in. Surprise? Yeah, you could say I was surprised, all right. Furious is more like it. This could have been the moment everything fell apart again. But something unexpected happened. My dad stood up for our time together. He explained to Emma that this trip was about repairing our relationship, something long overdue. And to my utter shock, Emma understood. She apologized to me, something I never thought I'd see, and they left, giving us the space we needed. The rest of the trip was a blur of emotions, conversations, and surprisingly healing. When we got back, things weren't perfect, but they were better. My dad started setting boundaries with Emma and Sarah, making sure our father-daughter time was respected. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I didn't have to compete for my dad's attention. As for Emma and Sarah, well, it's a work in progress. There are still moments of tension and awkwardness, but there's also an effort being made, which is more than I could have hoped for. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to go to my dad's before? I don't think so, but I've learned that sometimes taking a step back is what you need to move forward. And maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for us to be a family, not just a dad and his daughter living separate lives. Next story. Am I the jerk for telling my stepsister that we're not friends and putting my mom in a catch? 22? So, here's the scoop. My mom decided it was a good idea to move her new fiancé into our house last year. To be totally honest, I'm not exactly his biggest fan. My real dad lives in another country, and when I mentioned maybe I'd like to go live with him instead, my mom got really upset. She made a big scene, crying and all that, so she made me a deal. She said if I stayed, my soon-to-be stepdad wouldn't be allowed to boss me around or anything. All I had to do was be polite to him. That seemed fair enough to me. Now this guy, he's got 2 daughters. May, who's my age, 17, and June, who's a bit younger, 15. June and we get along all right. She doesn't bother me much. But May, she's in the same grade as me at school, and well, she's a bit of a challenge. Imagine being paired up with someone for a project who's super awkward, doesn't really get the best grades, and gets upset about pretty much everything. That's May for you. And for whatever reason, she doesn't seem to have any friends of her own. So as soon as our parents started getting serious and talking about getting married, May started clinging to me like she was desperate for a friend. And, I mean really clinging like she's some kind of leech and I can't shake her off. It's been pretty annoying, to be honest. So before my soon-to-be stepfamily moved into our house, I had a pretty easy time staying away from May at school. See, we're not in the same classes. She's in easier ones than I am. Despite that, she kept trying to be my friend, sending me friend requests and messages on social media. But I wasn't really interested, so I just ignored them. It was simple enough when she wasn't right in my face all the time. But then, her family moved in with us, and suddenly, May was everywhere. I mean everywhere, trying to chat me up nonstop, following me around the house, just constantly trying to be part of whatever I was doing. It felt like she was just too much. Always there, talking, and I couldn't get a moment of peace. I'm super into sports, right? And part of that means I have to train a lot, pretty much every single day. It's a big deal for me. May, on the other hand, she's not exactly what you'd call athletic. But when she mentioned to our parents that she was interested in getting fit, they thought it'd be a great idea for her to come to the gym with me. I wasn't thrilled, but I figured, how bad could it be? Turns out pretty bad. She was asking a million questions about how everything works, and she got tired super fast. Like, we were barely a quarter of the way